Toho Cinemas. I just came back from watching Lupin III the First. There were no subtitles, so I didn't understand the words, but I understood the actions. And I think that's all that matters to get into a character's heart. Lupin III the First doesn't come out in North America until August 2020, and as of now, there has been no confirmation of it coming over to Australia, which is where I live. But in January, I was lucky enough to take a trip down to Japan, and thankfully enough, Lupin III the First was still showing for the next few days, so I decided to take a chance and watch the movie without any subtitles or a dub. Just pure Japanese. So yeah, despite having seen the movie and having a pretty solid opinion formed on it, I've missed a pretty important element of it, but I do have a pretty good understanding of the plot, and I consulted with a few people who've seen the movie with subs or understood Japanese to flesh out a few unclear points within the story. The story is also pretty simple to understand, so even without subtitles, I got the general gist of things. I also bought stuff. I stole this poster for the Sonic movie. I have to get to translating it at some point. But I bought an epic keychain because the Band Presto figures aren't out yet, so I need something physical. And I got this book, which is titled Lupin III the First, but I'm assuming it's not a book or story, and it's a thing. So there's an introduction to it. And there's like story, and this is the only story. The rest of the book isn't story. Lupin III the First has to be one of the best cinema experiences I had. A big part of this had to do with the fact that I was in Japan, and people have manners in that country. The cinema was pretty quiet, and before the movie began, they told you that the police would fine you if they found you filming the movie, so maybe they were more so scared to peeve someone off rather than just being good manners. Okay, but I should talk about the actual movie now. Lupin III the First was actually one of those rare movies that gave me actual chills in the cinema. From the opening scene all the way to the end of the opening credits, I felt chills down my spine. The story for the Lupin movie is actually quite simple compared to all of Lupin's other adventures. Lupin tries to steal Bresson's diary, which leads to a treasure that not even his grandfather could steal, and that's really it. The rest of the movie is pretty straightforward from there, and isn't as complex as I'd expect a Lupin III movie to be. Usually Lupin movies are full of small little plot points that interweave together towards the end, but there was none of that here. This might also be because I don't understand what the characters were saying, but even then I got a pretty good sense of the story and understood a lot of the elements without needing those little interweaving moments. But this might also be because this Lupin movie seems to be aimed towards a family audience. The movie is rated G in Japan, and while it will definitely be rated a little higher over here in the West, we can't just ignore Japanese culture for a Japanese movie. Lupin III's plot twists are usually very well hidden. There may be very minor clues hinting towards a plot twist scattered around the films, but they aren't as obvious as how Lupin III the First handled its plot twists. Two pivotal moments come to mind where the viewer is supposed to feel triumphant because of some sort of discovery or the release of tension, but it's made extremely obvious throughout the movie what this discovery is. That's not to say there aren't any surprising moments in the movie, but it's kinda hard for me to speak on those when I can't understand the language. They could have just mentioned it and I missed it, so they may not even be twists at all. Oh, here's some characters that I don't know. Wait. Letitia, that's how you spell Letitia? I spelt it wrong. Wow. Okay. Now this old man, his name is Lambert, I didn't know that. And this gray-haired, scar face, his name is Gerald. I also didn't know that in the movie. Here we have pictures of the Lupin characters and their real-life versions. Now, I don't know if this is just me, but these guys really do not look like the Lupin characters, and I think that's the biggest flaw in this live-action adaptation of the movie. The most important element of Lupin III is the characters. Because the series is episodic with little to no continuity, that means the reason you're always excited for a new Lupin story is because of the characters. The story will have very little impact on the series as a whole, so you need the characters to be consistently fun to give the series an identity. And again, I couldn't understand the dialogue, but in terms of the performances of the actors, they all felt like their fun selves. I guess I could also comment on the characters' movements and reactions and stuff like that, and again, it's all great. Goemon has a fetish for a sword, Jigen is good buddies with Lupin, Fujiko is flirty with unclear intentions, and Lupin is his goofy and charming self. I was also told there was a lot of fun dialogue back and forths between characters, but don't take my word on that. But if there was at least one complaint I would have with the characters is that Zenigata gets a little too excited over the new girl Leticia when he already has a wife and kids. It's kind of like the Lupin franchise forgot about that fact. Lambert has a bit of character depth to him, so he isn't just a simple villain, and Gerald is his right-hand man whose menacing aura is incorporated in the plot well. Again, I can't comment on this too much due to my lack of knowledge in the Japanese language, but I can see the basic building blocks are put in place well. Now this is Yuji Ono, and Lupin III soundtracks are mostly composed by the same guy, Yuji Ono. So a lot of it sounds very similar and we get a lot of reoccurring pieces. The most notable one, of course, is the Lupin III theme, but themes like the Zenigata March and Samba Temperado appear quite often in Lupin III media, and so if you were a fan of Lupin before seeing the movie, you'll already have a love and appreciation for these pieces. But alongside the old, there is also the new. A lot of these are just pieces made specifically to be background music for a scene, but we do have a new song called Gift, which is sung by Lin Inazumi, and if the lyrics were in English, I would have noticed sooner that she's the same singer from Persona 5. This whole Arsene Lupin thing is really going full circle, isn't it? Anyways, Gift is a beautiful song that works as a theme for Leticia in a way, and short instrumental remixes of it are used throughout the movie before we finally hear the full song during the credits. It really leaves the movie on a wonderful note. Also, I noticed in Japan that no one left the cinema when the credits started playing. They all stayed until the very end. I just want to point that out. And last but not least, we have random stills from the story. My favorite one is this one, and this is the scene where Lupin captures Zenigata. And this scene is actually really cool because here you see Zenigata and he's tied up in a rope, and Lupin has used markers, or Sharpies as I like to call them, to draw mustaches on his face. Now, this is a parallel to an earlier scene in the movie here, where Lupin III gets captured, and he gets drawn with Sharpies on his face by Zenigata. He is also tied up in rope. Oh, it went dark. There you go. Again, we have a few stills. Now, a really good still in this I like is this one over here. You see it? This one over here. Now, this is a reference to Sonic the Hedgehog. If you didn't know, Lupin III is produced by TMS Anime, which is owned by Sega. The reference to Sonic the Hedgehog is very apparent in the characters of the colors of the clothes of the characters. In here, you see Fujiko with a blue shirt, and you see Leticia with a yellow shirt, and Lupin with a red shirt. Now obviously, the blue represents Sonic, the yellow represents Tails, and the red represents Eggman. The animation in Lupin III the First is gorgeous. Like, I really hope we get some sort of sequel to this, because I want to see Lupin in this beautiful environment again. I think if you got rid of all the cartoony looking characters and just showed me the environments with no context and told me they were photographs, I would believe you. So either the renders in this movie are really freaking good, or I just have the brain of a monkey. They also perfectly translated Lupin's cartoony mannerisms and tropes into a 3D CG world. At the end of the day, it really felt like I was watching another Lupin III anime, except it was a whole lot better because the 3D animation gives it the advantage of having smoother motion and dynamic camera angles during complex action scenes. I do have to say, I feel the movie was a little bit more limited than I expected. It might be because of the budget, because Lupin III isn't a crazy popular franchise. A lot of the movie took place indoors or very empty outdoor environments, such as deserts or highways or a road in the middle of a forest. The movie was very lacking in scenes that took place in crowded outdoor areas, but I will say that I'm glad that they sacrificed quantity for quality. But I do hope that if we get a sequel, the budget will be upped and we can see a Lupin walking around in public again. Overall, I think this is the perfect translation of a 2D anime into 3D. I just wish the plot was a little more complicated, but the simplicity of it also lets kids get into Lupin III as well. It's a good gateway movie for new people to start watching Lupin. If I gave this movie a score, I think I would give it around a 75%. But anyways, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like. If you want to see more and you aren't already, please subscribe. If you want to interact with me directly, follow my Twitter, or you can check out my Discord server. And yeah, like at the end of every video, I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Finally, we have some product placement. Here you can have a handcuff for when you get into bed with that special someone.
Wait a minute!